1.
Good morning. You're listening to Common Sense Matters. This is the monthly radio show for the Franklin County Democratic Party, and we talk about kitchen table issues that affect you and your family. We are not out in the culture wars. We are at your kitchen table talking about things that matter to you. And what more appropriate than groceries and the big tax that we pay on groceries? So that is going to be our topic today, is the effort to repeal the grocery tax. But before we get in, and we have two great guys here with us, but before we get into that, I'm going to just give our announcements for the Franklin County Democratic Party. We meet every fourth Tuesday at 6 o'clock at the Franklin County Annex Small Meeting Room, except for this Tuesday, because early voting is going to be going on. We're meeting at Las Margaritas restaurant. But typically we would be at the annex in the small meeting room right next to the early voting location. So please join us. Our website it's a long one, Franklin County, Tennessee Democratic Party.com. And Tennessee is all spelled out, it's not TN. So Franklin County, Tennessee Democratic Party.com. We have to add the Tennessee because every state in America has a Franklin County in it. Again, this Tuesday, February 27th, we're going to be at Las Margaritas restaurant on the boulevard. We're on Facebook at Franklin County TN Democratic Party. And I wanted to announce that we just recently had our annual President's Day Spelling Bee. It was on Monday, the 19th, at the Swanee Community Center. We had a meal. We heard from Rupa Blackwell, who's our executive committee representative, about the importance of voting in every primary and every election. We had 2 rounds of spelling bees with local kids, and I just wanted to announce our winners. So it was very fair, and we had kids from kindergarten all the way up to 11th grade. If you were in kindergarten, you were spelling off of a kindergarten list. If you were in 5th grade, you were spelling off of a 5th grade list, and so on. So for our younger spellers, our first prize winner was Gus Sabias, and he coming in second was his big sister, Lucy Sabias. And then our third place winner was Ella Brain. And then for the older spellers, our first place winner was Maggie Rudd. Our second place was Parker Kowalski, and our third place was Benjamin Rudd. So we had 3 brothers and sisters, all in the winners. So those families must be really good at spelling. They've got the gene for that. And then we had an American history quiz for the adults, and the winner for that was Chuck Mogray. So let me just set the setting for what our show is going to be about today. It's about the very high grocery tax that every single one of us pays in Tennessee, whether we're a billionaire or a family barely making ends meet. We all pay the same amount. We have one of the highest sales tax rates in the nation, and we are one of only 13 states in the nation that even has a grocery tax. Meanwhile, corporations like Amazon and FedEx are paying 0 in federal taxes. And there's currently an effort underway by Representative Bain and State Senator Oliver to repeal the grocery tax. So that's our topic for today, and I'm going to hand it over to Rob Feiklowicz. How long have you been in Franklin County?
Just about 3 years.
Okay. So Bob has retired here, and he has a good radio voice. And then he is interviewing Charles Uffelman from tell us your position or title.
Hey there. I'm the political director for the Joint House and Senate Democratic Caucus. So my job is to get Democrats elected in House and Senate races all across the state of Tennessee. So thanks for having me. I'm excited. I love my Franklin County Democrats. Mrs. Betty Fraley, I consider her my Democratic Party grandmother. So it's good to be in Fraley country. And I'm apparently y'all's meeting is going to be at Los Margaritas. So make sure you vote before you go and get your margarita on Tuesday.
Right. So before I hand it over to Bob, this is something that's really important to understand that just sort of underlies this whole issue, and that is the difference between a progressive tax system and a regressive tax system. So in Tennessee, we have a very regressive tax system, which means the burden is a lot higher on low-income people than it is on high-income people because it's all mainly based on. But anyway, why don't you, either of y'all, explain to the viewers the difference between a progressive tax system where the more you make, the more you pay, and a regressive where you pay the same amount. I think I just explained it, didn't I? Well, anyway.
Yeah, I think you did.
Okay. All right. So yeah, in a progressive tax system, the more you earn or the more assets or whatever you have, the more taxes you pay, and the less you have, the less tax, the lower taxes rate you pay. But in a regressive like Tennessee, whether you're a billionaire in Nashville or a working person here in Franklin County, you're going to pay 4% sales tax on that gallon of milk, right? Either way. So it's a bigger bite for the person here in Franklin County than it is for the billionaire in Nashville. All right, Bob, take it over. I'm talking too much.
Well, you're allowed. You're sort of a host as well. Good morning. My name is Bob Feiklowitz. As Helen indicated, I'm a recent transplant from Ohio. So I'm not really all that familiar with the Texas legislature. So I had to do a little homework.
Tennessee,
I'm sorry. Harrison thought Texas. Where did Texas come from? I don't know. I'm even looking at a piece of paper that says Tennessee.
I've always been told you don't want to borrow trouble, and I don't want to borrow any trouble from Texas today.
Yeah, the show's going right down the tubes, right out of the chute. Helen was talking a little bit about the regressive tax, and one of the things that I had looked up to try to get familiar with what's going on in Tennessee is the lowest 20% of the population is paying 10.5% of taxes, and the upper 1% is paying 2.8%. So there's a significant difference between those two extremes, and I guess one of the things we would really like to do is see that equalized a little bit. Charles, do you have anything that you want to add to that?
Yeah, one of the things that President Biden has been quoted saying a lot is, if you want to show me your values, show me your budget. In the state of Tennessee, our governor and our speakers are fighting like crazy to give tax money back with the excise tax refund to corporations who have been taxed, and then they've gone to the state. They said, we don't want to pay this tax. Not only that, do we want a tax cut? We want all the money we've paid in the past few years. So they're fighting for a huge refund. So that's what Republicans are fighting for, the governor and the speakers. And you have Democrats who know that our job is to reduce costs for working families. When we go to the state legislature, our members, our House and Senate members, they want to reduce costs. Tennessee has the highest grocery tax in the nation. We also, going back to that budget, going back to our values, we have a massive rainy day fund. We have $30 billion sitting in a fund, collecting interest, just sitting there. And the Democratic philosophy is, we're going to make the money work for the people. The job of the state government isn't to amass its own wealth for the sake of wealth. It is make that money work for people. So that's kind of the top issue for us right now, is reducing that or eliminating that grocery tax. Our state is very wealthy. Working families across the state are really struggling when it comes to making ends meet. Budgets are just a little tighter right now, and we have to be reactive to that.
And can I add one thing? The Tennessee state legislature has given huge tax cuts to businesses and corporations. And have they passed the savings on to us, the consumers, to we, the consumers? No, they have not. Groceries are going up. They're not going down because they're getting these tax cuts. They're going up. And big companies like Kraft and these big food companies, they're making record profits. So yeah, it's not like, if we cut taxes, then they'll pass the savings on to us. No, they won't.
Yeah, we have the ability to fight corporate greed, and what many of our state leaders are doing is they're trying to feed into corporate greed, and working families just deserve better.
Sure. One of the things that really surprised me when I was trying to bone up a little bit on the legislature was the disparity between the Republicans and the Democrats. In the House, there are 75 Republicans to 24 Democrats, that's pretty awesome. They refer to it as a supermajority, and that definitely is. In the Senate, there are 25 Republicans and 6 Democrats. So that looks like it's an uphill battle trying to, I guess, maybe try to refocus those excess funds back into the public domain instead of just earning interest at $30 billion, which has got to be a significant amount of money.
Yeah, anything that Democrats pass in the legislature would require lots of Republican votes. That's the reality of it. That's the reality of gerrymandering. So in Tennessee, Democrats typically perform in the mid to upper 30s, up to 40% on a statewide ballot. But we're getting 10 to 20% less when it comes to seats in the legislature. That is because they draw districts, they draw the legislative maps to make sure that they override the will of the people and the Republicans give themselves these big majorities.
Right.
And that started around 2010, and that's what we're fighting now, is to break that supermajority.
They were saying that they redistrict every 10 years. Whereabouts are we in that cycle to do the redistricting and hopefully eliminate the gerrymandering?
It kind of feels like it just happened. They passed the latest maps in 2021. The Senate maps were actually struck down by a court in Nashville, and that is in litigation. Will continue litigation on the Senate maps for a number of years. The courts just kicked it down the road for another cycle. But when they kicked it down the road, the Senate maps, they said these maps are unconstitutional. They are gerrymandered, but we can't decide it right now. So they're going to wait until after this next election. So we're already on our second election, and then we'll do another round of redistricting in 2030, 2031. That's if the Senate maps aren't struck down before then.
I was telling Bob, just to give a little context, that before 2010, that's when 2010 is when any law that you don't like, it probably happened after 2010. That's when teachers lost all their rights. That's when all this stuff happened. But yeah, in 2008, we had a Democratic president, Barack Obama. We had a Democratic governor, Phil Bredesen. We had a Democratic U.S. representative, Lincoln Davis. We had a Democratic state representative, George Fraley, and we had a Democratic state senator, Eric Stewart. So everything we had 2 Republican U.S. senators. It was Fred Thompson and Lamar Alexander. But everything was blue in 2008. And then 2010, the whole Tea Party thing happened, and that's when the Republicans got their supermajority, and they've had it ever since. And they have done everything they can to relieve tax burdens on the wealthy since then, for sure.
Yeah, and as you said, the attack on the teachers union, the attack on teachers themselves, making it harder to teach, making it a less desirable job. Teaching is really hard anywhere in the country. But in Tennessee, we kind of thrive on making it even harder than anywhere else. And so as they took over in 2010, they started a war on education, and we're kind of seeing the fruition, the final stages of that war to dismantle public schools. A lot of our Republicans on the other side of the aisle see public schools as the enemy. That's why they are trying to replace them with charter schools, and now the big gamble, which is vouchers. Diverting public funds from public schools and public school teachers and school buses and cafeteria workers and high school football games and all that, taking money from that and giving it to private schools who don't have to do any of those things. The plans that we're seeing on the table right now would take essentially $7,000 away from a public school system and give it to a private school system for every student that participates and transfers to a private school. It'll be devastating for our public schools.
I was going to say that's a significant amount of money on a per student basis.
Yeah.
So that's really amazing. Let me ask you, one of the questions I had was the level of bipartisanship. Is there such a thing, I guess, occurring on a lot of these bills that seem to be very, very, I guess, directed in one side or the other?
Yeah, I think I've been surprised to see, not out in public yet, but privately, Republicans are interested in the grocery tax repeal.
Good.
They know they have to be helping. Some of them know they have to be helping It's good that we have Representative Bain and Senator Oliver leading on that issue and trying to get those votes done. But then, not just in passing things, but preventing things from passing when it comes to vouchers. So they don't have the votes to pass vouchers right now.
Well, that's good.
They're short, and that means in the House they're losing probably 20, 30 votes. And they are really struggling and negotiating to get all the votes they need to get it through the committees and get it passed on the floor. And so that's where the work of the people is right now. You should be talking to your state legislators saying, no, I want Franklin County schools to be as good as they can be. I want, from what I hear, Franklin County schools are kind of on a roll, and they're starting to pick up some momentum. We don't want to go backwards. We don't want to derail the train of our public schools. So go to your state reps, go to your state senators, and tell them this isn't right. We need to be investing in what works.
Good. People really need to become active instead of just complaining about it. It's very, very easy to sit back and say, boy, I disagree with this or disagree with that. But unless you actually get out there and make a concerted effort on an individual basis to put your voice out there, put your vote out there, that's the only way things happen in a democracy. So, I mean, it's imperative that on an individual basis, you make a really good effort to try to be familiar with the what's going on in the legislature, as well as address your concerns to your state representative and senators, because they're the ones that are doing all of the lawmaking, and unless they're aware of what your feelings are, they just go on their own feelings. And we see that happening a lot in D.C. right now. So that's not a good thing for us as citizens of Tennessee and Franklin County.
I think I've been impressed by the interactions of the public of Tennessee in the past year. You had the expulsion of the Tennessee 3 back in April, Tennessee 2, Justin Jones.
Ask you about that.
Yeah, Representative Justin Jones, Representative Justin Pearson, they were expelled. Representative Gloria Johnson was almost expelled, save a few
One
Republican votes that kept her in. When that happened, you had the eyes of the world come look at the Tennessee legislature. It was on MSNBC, CNN. That was all a response to a student-led protest. We had the shooting at Covenant School, and you had students all across Davidson County leave their classrooms and go down to the legislature and demand action. That's what started that. Is people interacting. Kids, not just, you don't have to wait to be 21.
Right.
You can be a kid in school and go down there and you can change things in your state legislature. So they weren't able to pressure the legislature into passing gun reform. But what they were able to do is get the governor out there presenting his proposal. We saw the calling of a special session. I'm seeing Republican leaders be more reactive now than ever to people. I think before they felt untouchable. And then with the expulsion hearings, they start to realize that, what people are doing and saying to us matters. So that's why it's very important as the election draws near that we are hitting the gas, that we are continuing to hold our leadership accountable, demanding things like the grocery tax repeal for working families, demanding that we stop this voucher scam that is going to defund our public schools, demanding that we expand access to health care and stop sending health care money that we pay in federal taxes to other states.
Oh, painful.
Medicaid expansion, we're already paying for it. We're just not receiving it, which is threatening our clinics and our hospitals and our dentist offices right here in Franklin County. So that's what the 2024 elections are going to be about. What's at stake is breaking the supermajority. It is flipping enough seats this cycle and next cycle so Republicans no longer have a 2/3 majority. They have to work with the other side. You asked about bipartisanship. That's the other problem with supermajorities, is they can do anything they want, pass any rule, expel anybody without having to pick up a single Democratic vote. And so that's one party rule, and that's really, really dangerous. And so that's what we have to break up this fall.
Well, I understand the Tennessee 3, as we call them. They were protesting on the Senate floor, or the representative, I guess, I'm not sure.
The House floor.
House floor, which I guess drew a lot of ire from somebody, but I wasn't sure who originated the vote to expel them.
Yeah, there were 3 expulsion resolutions by 3. It wasn't senior members of the party as middle tier members of the Republican Party, but I think the expulsion resolutions were probably originated by the leadership. They probably wrote them and then picked these guys to do the expulsion resolutions. And so the resolutions came out, I guess, 3 or 4 days after the protests. Mm-hmm. So the Republicans, I think, were really struggling to do what to do, and expulsion was the only thing they could agree on. Which is, in my opinion, the most extreme thing they could have done. I don't understand how they got there. That's not for me to say, but it is really frustrating that they spent all that time and all that energy expelling the folks who were demanding change, who were demanding action, instead of actually just acting. Just pass some reform. Right. Don't do all this and bring all this national media here. Just solve the problem. Absolutely. And that's what Democrats are for. That's really the dichotomy. Democrats wanted to solve the problem. Republicans wanted to throw out the people who wanted to solve the problem. And that's what we see on a lot of these issues.
One of the things that I was a little bit surprised at is somewhere along the line they voted to silence. I'm not sure which one of the 3 representatives it was, but they were not allowed to speak on the floor for a day, I believe it was.
During special session, they had I don't remember the specific rule, but yeah, they rewrote the rules so they could basically silence members at will.
Well, the thing that was scary about it is they could silence them for one day, or they could silence them for the rest of their term, is the way I understood
exactly.
it. And considering First Amendment rights, that's a little bit draconian, to say the least, because, what else are we going to do if we can't open our mouth and talk about the things that concern us? And, maybe it's shouting at the winds at times, but the long and the short of it is people have a voice, and silencing it is not the productive way of governing, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think gerrymandering convinced the Republican supermajority that they can pick who governs instead of letting the people pick. And I think it really bothers them. I think they lose sleep at night that the people of their own volition choose Representative Justin Jones. They choose Representative Justin Pearson. Those people in that district, the 70,000 voters that live there, they want them. And I think it bothers Republican leadership on a deep level that voters make their own decisions. It is very anti-democracy. And so the idea that the people of Tennessee can choose a leader, but Cameron Sexton decides, no, we don't want him, so you've got to go away. They've got this other bill in the legislature now that will make it impossible that if you get expelled, you can't run for your seat again.
Wow.
Yes, that is making its way through committee right now. So the legislature could throw someone out, and then you could never run again, making the expulsion permanent, formally and irrevocably eradicating the will of the voters in that district.
I was going to say that rides on the almost piggybacks on the gerrymandering issues, because if they keep changing the districts to favor the Republicans and eliminate any Democratic threat, or Democrat threat, I suppose I should refer to it, that makes it even more difficult. Now, if they can expel somebody and they not be allowed to ever run again, that seems very un-American.
Yeah, and again, it stacks up to the issue that Democrats want to fight for working families. They are fighting for working families by standing up for public schools, by trying to repeal the grocery tax, and it just seems like the guys on the other side of the aisle are lost in their own politics. It's like, at what point are you going to spend a lot of time fixing problems instead of, honestly, back home they have a saying, why don't you solve more problems than you cause? And
very good.
I would love to see that. Like Cameron Sexton, why don't you solve a problem before you cause another one,
Absolutely. I guess on an individual basis, what can the individual, and I guess maybe it's directed more towards Democrats, to try to expand their majority within this, or not majority, but expand their presence within the state. When I see the disproportionate representation of Republicans to Democrats, it seems like the Republican Party has got the inside track on everything, upcoming, elections and those types of things. What can we as an individual do to try to improve our odds?
I think we got to run races everywhere. I'm hearing that we've got some good folks considering running for the House seat here in this district. We've got candidates announced in a lot of the battleground districts, and they announced early last fall, earlier than they have in a long time. So Democrats, progressive leaders, they're stepping up. They are getting out there, and they're telling stories. So some of the races I watch every day is down in House District 97, Jesse Huseth. He's a former teacher, business owner, out there fighting for public schools, fighting for working families, and talking about the challenges of raising a young family in Tennessee. Then you got Allie Phillips up in House District 75. If you haven't heard about Allie Phillips, I think you should look her up. She is a young mother, provides in-home child care. She runs a daycare basically out of her house. She got pregnant last year. And early on in that pregnancy, a fatal anomaly was found. And her life was at risk by the continuance of that pregnancy. She could not do anything about it here in Tennessee. So she had to travel to New York to seek an abortion that protected her life, saved her life.
Absolutely.
Had to go to another state to do that, in a state that criminalizes that here in Tennessee. So she told that story. It's very painful for her. She's coming up on the anniversary of going through that. But she met with her state representative, and she said, we've got to change this. There are women's lives at stake. This is a cruel and unusual policy that endangers people's lives needlessly. He didn't do anything about it. He met with her once and patted her on the head. And
yeah, sorry to hear that.
I think at one point he told her he didn't think women could have difficult pregnancies after their first one. They couldn't. Yeah, they couldn't miscarry after. So that's what happens when you leave just a man in charge. So, so we got a young woman. She's 28 years old. She's telling her story and she's demanding change. And I think Tennesseans are really responding to that. We're seeing her on Washington Post and NPR and all that. And then you got Luis Mata in Rutherford County, a young immigrant organizer there that has worked tirelessly to help new Americans come here and build lives and receive the American dream. Statue of Liberty. We love Luis out there talking about how we can make Tennessee a more welcoming state. Not just for immigrants, but for all working people. So those are some of the battleground races we're going to watch. So you asked, how can we help? The big thing is to jump in on these races, whether that be as a donor, whether that be as sharing their social media. Make sure that you're telling our story.
Absolutely.
So that's the electoral piece. But the other thing, and I think there's a lot of good folks here in Franklin County helping with this weekend, is go to the grocery store and talk to folks about repealing the grocery tax.
I saw that.
Yeah, so go out there and talk to your neighbors. A lot of folks think that, well, I don't know, maybe down here this close to Alabama, where I think they have a lower sales tax, they may not see that as like the only reality that we have to have these sales taxes. I know where I'm from, people just think sales tax is what it is. That's just the way it is. It doesn't have to be this way.
Right.
We can repeal it. Our state will be fine financially. We've got $33 billion in the rainy day fund. Go out there and talk to folks. Talk to them. And that's not even a very partisan thing. Just talk about helping working families.
Absolutely.
There's other options, and we have to break through. We have to make sure that people know that Democrats are here to fight for folks. I think there's this idea out there that we got our heads in the clouds and we're not fighting for working families. But I think if you look at what we're fighting for, what we've just talked about, that's what we're doing.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that I was curious about, you had just mentioned Alabama, and they just passed, or the Supreme Court just passed that IVF, in vitro fertilization bill that pretty much wipes out a lot of family desire, for lack of a better purpose, for saying that embryos are in fact children and you can't destroy them after the fact. And I was curious, how do you think it's going to, I guess, percolate up to the Tennessee voter and Republicans? Any feelings on that?
Yesterday, Republican leadership said that
in the House said that it wasn't something they were interested in. But I do know that there are conservative groups in this state that want to head that direction. They are interested in banning abortion. They are interested in banning in vitro fertilization. They are very interested in banning birth control. It seems weird and invasive, and it boils down to, I think a lot of folks are well-meaning and they vote Republican because they feel like Republicans align with them in their values. But I think if you start picking apart some of these deeper policy positions of the Republican Party, do you really want to ban abortion in all circumstances, even when the mother is going to die? Do you really want to ban IVF, which is helping families have kids? Do you really want to ban birth control, which is allowing young people to be in a relationship and plan when they have kids in a more stable way that allows their kids to grow up in better economic circumstances? Do you really want all that? I think the overwhelming majority of voters will say no.
Yeah,
no, it doesn't make any sense.
I think if the voters take it on a personal level, not just listen to the talking heads on TV talking about the various legislations that, that are going on and bans on abortions and whatever else and time limits and those types of things. If they just think about what would you do if you were, in a relationship and got pregnant and you really didn't, that wasn't something that was on your life plan, so to speak, or you were struggling to have a child because of, fertility issues. Instead of just listening to whatever somebody else is saying about it, take a look at it as like, what if I was going to have to do that decision? If my life was being threatened, that sounds crazy as a male, but I mean, as if my life were being threatened because of a pregnancy that has gone the wrong way, for lack of a better term, how would I react to it if they said, no, you can't do anything about it, you have to go full term? That seems like a very, very cruel thing.
I think the story that's had the biggest impact on me would be the transition of my mother on the issue of abortion rights. She's probably a pretty moderate voter, and she generally did not like the idea of abortion. She wasn't a huge pro-lifer, but she, like a lot of voters, wanted to express discontent with the idea of having an abortion, especially the idea that it's something you'd use as a form of birth control. But then my sister got pregnant, and it all changed for Mom in that instance. She was like, I want to protect my baby.
Yep.
And my baby was my sister. And so if my sister's life was threatened, she wanted to have the tools to save my sister's life. At any point, make sure my sister's life was saved. And that, I think that's a reality a lot of families face. And they should have that tool. They should have that option.
Absolutely.
And it should be between them and their doctor.
Yes.
And that's the problem with a lot of the exceptions bills that come up. Is yeah, you've got this exception for certain anomalies, things like that.
Incest, rape, those types of things.
But these exceptions still allow, or they still require oversight by a medical board over that specific decision in a way we don't treat any other medical. So like if you need a new knee, the doctor isn't going to get in trouble if he gave you a new knee, but it turns out it wasn't as warranted as the doctor initially thought. Those are real-time decisions that have to be made. The doctor shouldn't have to worry about whether they're going to lose their license. They need to just make what is the right medical decision for the mother in that moment.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that has transpired just as a result of the Alabama decision is physicians are backing away from it.
Yep.
Not because they're incapable, it's because they're afraid of being litigated.
Yep.
And same thing with hospitals not providing that type of care.
Yep.
So it's a sticky wicket, to say the least. I don't know, I guess, how quickly we'll, navigate our way through it. It is, I think, my frustration is that it is a deeply personal decision and should be made by the woman, actually the husband too, I guess, under some circumstances, and the physician. Why does the state think that they have, power to do that or regulate it? To me, that just, I don't know. I can't understand that mentality.
I think it's going to be one of our biggest issues across the country and here in Tennessee until it's decided. And I think women are going to continue to organize and continue to be loud about their rights and their lives until they get the freedom that they need. And so whether that's a legislative action at the state level or a federal action, it's going to continue to be top of mind for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's definitely a very, very difficult topic for a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. There's no easy answers, but I think it's going to come down to what does the majority want.
Yeah.
You know, the Roe v. Wade being struck down after 50 years, it was like, I'm sorry, how does that happen?
Yeah, and we've seen abortion rights be successfully defended in some of the most conservative places in the country. Kentucky, Kansas, and we're seeing polling that shows that abortion rights are popular here in Tennessee. That these extreme bans are very unpopular. They're only being done because one section of a primary electorate wants it. You know, you have a lot of the right to life folks there in the Republican primary.
Well, the talking heads seem to think that the abortion issue is going to be a minefield for Republican candidates going forward. So it seems like it would be incumbent upon the Democrats to highlight those, positions for the Republicans, just to make their constituents aware of their situation, because it does vary in terms of who the representative is. What are their thoughts on the issue? And is that something that you support and want to continue supporting versus perhaps a Democratic, or Democrat candidate that says, no, I'm pro-choice, pro-decision on your own basis?
Yeah, we had one Republican county chair back home in Clarksville. He was interviewed by a national organization. It was about Allie Phillips's race and it was about the abortion issue. And this is the Republican county chair there. He said, I tell all my candidates to not talk about the issues. That's where you get in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
If you're running for office and you're having to tell your candidates or you're a candidate yourself and you have to think, don't talk about the issues or I'm going to get in trouble.
Right.
You're already in trouble. The trouble's there.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing about what the Democrats are fighting for is we know that regular working people in this state are already in trouble.
Absolutely.
It is attacks on their freedoms, whether that be the freedom to live in a state with economic opportunity when it comes to repealing their grocery tax, whether that's the freedom to live and make medical choices, have access to abortion care if needed, but also Medicaid, Medicare expansion for those who need it, the freedom to basically move around the state. We have a transportation system that's really struggling. If you live in the Nashville area and certain times of the day it takes twice as long to get somewhere, that's a problem the state should be investing in. So those are all freedoms the Democrats are fighting for.
Yeah, it's really going to be interesting to see how this, the 2024 elections pan out. There are so many different issues that are popping up for what seems like unrelated circumstances. All of a sudden, it's like, well, wait a minute, I have to think about IVF. I have to think about, Roe v. Wade. I have to think about abortion. I have to think about, who the candidate is. How old are they? Are they capable? On and on and on. And it doesn't seem like something that the average individual could relate to because they're thinking about how am I going to make the payments for my utility bills? How am I going to buy food?
Yeah.
How am I going to get insurance? Health care. How many people don't have any health care? And people get sick. So it's like, how do we deal with that?
Yeah, I think a lot of people who consider themselves middle class and have good jobs are seeing their pocketbooks tightened more than they've seen in a long time. And there's real policy that the legislature could pass today that Democrats want, and that is repealing the grocery tax. That is expanding Medicaid. Those two things right there would alleviate a lot of stress. I mean, saving every family 10% on their grocery bill, I mean, that would save me probably, $50, $60 a month. Medicaid expansion, not only would that provide health care for a lot of struggling folks, it would reduce cost at your clinic. Because right now, some clinics and all hospitals have to treat anybody who walks through the door. And so those costs get passed on
Absolutely.
if someone can't afford to pay. What Medicaid would allow us to do, that expansion, would shore that up. It would mean that the tax dollars that we're already paying are going to come back to your community and make sure that those hospitals are reimbursed. That means more nurses for your community. That means more doctors. That means more tax dollars circulating in your community.
Absolutely. The shortage of nurses has always been, something that pops up locally as well as nationally. And a lot of that's going to trickle back down to the fact that they're not properly reimbursed, either from a salary standpoint for the individual or the hospitals being reimbursed for services that they have to provide.
Yeah.
Now that's a great thing that they are able to provide it, but they still have an operational thing to consider.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah, that's a real impact for a
Yeah.
family. I mean, if you're tired of seeing your grandsons and granddaughters get their nursing degrees and then go off to Nashville, Chattanooga, and Atlanta, well, then fight for Medicaid expansion. Increase your healthcare opportunities here in the country.
Sure. Are there any other things that you'd like to touch on today? We've jumped all over the place. Bipartisanship, healthcare, grocery taxes. The supermajority, the Tennessee 3. What other things would you like to talk about and to get a Democrat base inspired?
I think what you're going to hear from this summer, or especially early on, will be all that's being invested in here in Tennessee by the Biden administration. So keep your ears to the ground. There are projects happening all over the state, cities, rural areas, that are being paid for by the American Rescue Plan, some of the Biden's infrastructure deal. That money is coming in now. Some of our friends across the aisle, they're taking credit for it despite opposing it, which we're used to. That's okay.
Sure. And they're done that.
If it gets popular, if you come along after it's voted on, that's fine, I guess. But we're going to start telling that story. You're going to see members of the legislature come out and talk about that this summer. What bridges are getting fixed.
Good.
What water problems are being solved. What roads are being paved. Where is broadband being put in. We're going to talk about the investments that are being made that are modernizing our infrastructure and modernizing the state, but also addressing some of the gaps. I mean, there's people out there that can't get work from home virtual jobs because they don't have broadband on their ridge,
Right.
So there's a lot of work that we're going to talk about there. That's bills that were not sexy when they were passed. They didn't grab all the headlines and they weren't the big political fights, and so they're not as memorable. But we are going to remember the actual projects when they're done, and so they're getting kicked off this summer.
Good, because I think a lot of those things that President Biden had initiated that are in fact actually happening, people don't realize it. Even on a local level, does anybody say, "Hey, this bridge is being fixed because of what President Biden had initiated"?
Yeah.
The water treatments and all of those things. So I'm really glad that those things are going to be highlighted throughout the summer, because I don't think President Biden's getting credit for that now.
Yeah.
Everybody makes it out like, well, he hasn't done anything. And the same thing with the economy. That seems to be improving constantly, but he's not getting any credit for that either. So
Yeah.
It's a crazy world out there right now.
That's okay. I mean, we've got to talk about it. So
Sure.
we've got to show up in communities, and so I think that's something that we as a party have not done as well as we should. I mean, we should be honest about that. And so we're gonna step it up. We're gonna show up more. I think the one I'm most excited about is trains. Amtrak is expanding. They're looking at bringing more train routes to Tennessee. Now it's going to be several years to get that done, but we're on their list now. So it's really exciting to see what can happen there. I think further that at the state level, I think Democrats are hoping to build in some state-based train routes There's a caucus formed, and there's a study about how we can work alongside Amtrak, and that is bipartisan. That is something that both sides want to see. Democrats are a little more impacted because they're in the urban areas where the trains would start and stop. But yeah, we want more access to transportation like that. Make it easier to get across.
Oh my God, yes. When I was over in Europe several years ago, and we took the rail pass on Eurail and high-speed trains and all those things. It was remarkable.
Yeah.
Absolutely wonderful. It didn't have to get in the car and drive anywhere. You just get to the train station, get on, and get off when you're, it's like wherever you wanted to be.
Yeah.
It was a wonderful experience, and I've often wondered, why can't we do that here?
Yeah.
We've got rail service all over the country, but there is no high-speed rail. And I think there's, one or two places that have high-speed rail between like New York and Washington.
Yeah, and that's some of the expansion of that Amtrak plan. I would love it. I would love it if there was a Clarksville to Chattanooga, Atlanta line. Then I could just catch a train and come see my cousin Bruce McMillan anytime I wanted without having to burn up a gas tank.
Right. Yeah, it's a wonderful way to travel. We used to get up in the morning and we say, okay, where are we going today? And there was a little local deli, for lack of a better term. We were in Germany at the time. And we'd go in there and get a sandwich and whatever else we wanted. They put it in a nice little package for us. We'd get on the train, and we're on our way to wherever. And we have a lunch.
Yeah.
Just leisurely eat. Don't have to stop anywhere.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's
that could be a reality for us within the next 10 years.
I really hope it does. I'm glad you brought that up because I can relate to it, and I hope a lot of other people will get a chance to relate to it as well.
We have a president that loves riding trains. He rode the Amtrak from Delaware to D.C. every week.
Yeah, for how many years?
For 30, 40 years.
30
yeah.
years, yeah.
So we're seeing the fruits of that.
Good. Well, I've enjoyed our conversation this morning. We're coming up on the hour here, but I do want to thank you very, very much for making the effort to come down here. I wasn't sure if you came down last night or if you got up real early this morning and couldn't catch a train down here.
No train. So I like I said, I came down, stayed with my cousin, the Honorable Commissioner Bruce McMillan. He lives. He's a retired Episcopal priest up in Sewanee. This is my first time to Franklin County. Like I said, I love it here. So we're going to go see the domain today and tour around. I'm pretty excited to see the beautiful county y'all have.
Good. Yeah, I'm very pleased with it. I've been here, like I said, almost 3 years, and I've enjoyed it. And I really have to get out myself and do some more exploration of what is available here. Mm. So, that's one of the things I'd like to do this coming summer is take my dog, jump in the car, and tour Tennessee, literally tour Tennessee.
That is the cool thing about this job is, we're going across the state, we're meeting with candidates, we're training them, recruiting them, helping working people, but we also get to see just the splendor of this state from the big river down in Memphis, and it's kind of a prairie in West Tennessee. It's flatlands, the kind of the rolling hills where I'm from in Middle Tennessee. And then you get to these big hills over here up, and then Upper East in the mountains. So we're really blessed to have all that diversity of ecosystem in the state.
I came from Cleveland, Ohio, which is flat as a pancake. And when I came down here, it was like, whoa, I wasn't expecting this.
Yeah.
I have no idea what I was expecting, but having the mountains and that type of stuff is just beautiful.
Welcome to Appalachia.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Charles, I want to, again, thank you very, very much for joining us. Look forward to hearing more from the Democrats this summer. Hopefully get a lot of people out there voting and being Democrats and taking an active interest in what's going on in Tennessee.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Really proud of the Franklin County Democrats. Keep doing what you're doing. Invest in races where we can win. We've got to flip seats. That's what we're going to work on. But it's about helping working people, whether that's the grocery tax repeal or stopping vouchers. Talk to your representatives. Make sure that you are showing up in this conversation about the future of our state because it's critical.
Yeah, and just to remind everyone, the Franklin County Democrats are meeting at La Margarita.
Los Margarita? La
Margarita this coming Tuesday. I think it's at 6 p.m.
You're meeting there because of early voting, so I do want to reiterate, go vote before you
Forward,
get
yes,
your
yes.
margarita. Your margarita is your treat after
Yes,
you vote.
There you go. Thank you very, very much, Charles. You have a wonderful day and enjoy your trip up to Suwannee and visiting, and have a safe trip going home to Clarksville.
Thank you, sir.
All right.